Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And Wargaming have released the T-3485M for a couple of days in the gift shop, and I realised this is a tank that I've never showcased on the channel. Now why was that? Because until this latest patch, I think it was probably one of the weakest premium tanks tier for tier in the game. Something completely insignificant, and you'd have to be absolutely crazy to buy this instead of a Rudy, for example. However, as we can clearly see here in patch 9.17.1, the T-3485M has received a massive buff. Its alpha damage has increased from 160 up to 180. Its penetration has increased from 126 up to 144. Its accuracy has been improved from 0.42 to 0.37, and it's received a whopping aim time buff to 2.2 seconds, whereas previously it was 2.5 seconds. The vehicle has also received dispersion buffs, and if that wasn't enough, look at the shell velocity of the tank, increasing from 792 up to 950. And so this vehicle has never been stronger, so let's compare it to a variety of other tier 6 Soviet medium tanks and also a tier 7 Soviet medium tank, the T-43. So each one of these vehicles uses the same 85mm with 180 alpha damage. That's pretty nice for a tier 6 medium tank when many vehicles such as the Cromwell Berlin are packing 135. One thing that's interesting is now that they have buffed up that alpha damage of the T-3485M without reducing its rate of fire, this vehicle now just has 15% more DPM than the Rudy and the standard T-3485, and it's even got more DPM than the higher tiered Soviet medium tank, the T-43, and better turret traverse dispersion than the T-43 and the T-3485, and you can see that you're going to have better gun handling on the tier 6 premium medium tanks than on the standard tier 6 or the higher tiered tier 7. And so what we're clearly seeing here is that the T-3485M just outperforms the Rudy and also a higher tiered medium tank with regards to its weapon and also its weapon handling. So how about the mobility? Well, its top speed is 53 kilometers an hour, above and below the other tanks in this comparison. Its engine power is the same as the Rudy, but worse than the T-3485 and the T-43, which gives it a worse power to weight ratio. The ground resistances on this tank are worse than the Rudy, the T-3485 and the T-43, which is something to take into account. And overall, this vehicle will have the worst mobility in this comparison, but certainly not by much. Now, the key highlight of the T-3485M is frontal hull armor. It is 30mm better than the Rudy, the same as the T-43. And so this means that when you angle the T-3485M effectively, such as this, not only is the whole of this upper part an auto ricochet, because of the impressive angling of the front of the vehicle and that 75mm of hull armor, you're getting like 150mm of effective armor all across the front of the tank. And if they hit the driver's hatch here, that certainly isn't a weak point, and your effective armor is 200. And so what this means is this is a very sturdy tier 6 medium tank. And as we can see, auto ricochets off the side of the turret, but your front of your turret isn't really going to do all that well. Some parts of it are going up to 150, 160. The cheek's not so great, and the cupola on top is 90mm and quite prominent. And when we look at the Rudy's armor model, just look how much of a difference that extra 30mm of hull armor makes on the T-3485M. On the Rudy, you're not really going to be ricocheting anything, even tier 4 tanks, all that often. And even when you're over-angling the hull like this, you've got about 88mm of protection, whereas on that T-3485, when you over-angle the armor, we're talking about nearly double. And this is very strong armor on this tank, especially against tier 4s and tier 5s. They're really not going to be able to penetrate you all that reliably unless they dab that 2 key. And this kind of armor used to be something that you had to sacrifice a lot to be able to get. But for some reason now, you don't really have to sacrifice all that much, even only 5 meters view range compared to the Rudy. And really, apart from 10 meters view range, a few hit points and some side armor and a little bit of mobility, this really is just a T-43 at tier 6. So let's see what it's capable of in the latest patch. We're going to be checking out Andras 0011 playing in his T-3485M. And he's going to be getting himself into quite an aggressive location, defending a rather nice matchup on Sand River Assault. Sand River Assault, I have to admit, this is probably one of the best maps for the defending team. It feels like they've just got such an advantage, but I think if you're the kind of player who really likes to stack up some view range and play aggressively all along the mid-ridge, all along here, then you're also still going to have a great success. Really, with this map, I kind of like the position that Andras is going into, and he's going to have a great result from there. But personally for me, I always like to try and hold this location up here, especially if I've got great view range, because from here what I can do is spot out along this line, I can spot out along that line, and really start to try and get my artillery firing. But then again, you know, at low tiers, when you've only got one FE3 or 4 on your team, maybe your view range isn't going to be quite so important. And it looks like Andras doesn't really have his crew pumped up on this tank. Quite surprised, maybe he's not using coated optics, or maybe there's a bug with XVM here. He doesn't spot that STR V74 until he gets fairly close, but he puts his first shell into it. 188 damage, followed up by 138. That must be one of the lowest rolls I think you could possibly get in this tank. 171 next, and this, you can already see what this 20 alpha damage buff to this vehicle without a reduction in the rate of fire can do. You are picking apart tanks pretty much as quickly as most tier 7 medium tanks will. This tank has more DPM than a lot of tier 8 medium tanks now at tier 6, which is just absolutely incredible. And having killed one of that platoon of the STR V74, he's also working his way through the second one. Now he spots an IKV65 and also a T-34 who's making his way down the eastern flank. Will he be able to hit the Swedish tier 6 tank destroyer? Yes, he does. He tracks him. He quickly puts the track back on, but another critical hit. Maybe he took out his driver. Will he still have the mobility? Oh no, he didn't quite see the ridge line sticking out there, and it means that he doesn't manage to finish him off. Now the STRV puts one into him. Finally, he's spotted. The STRV bounces off his side armor there. Let's just take a quick look at the angling. Yeah, that would have hit the auto ricochet off the side plate there. But unfortunately, the IKV65 on the enemy team manages to put a big old 239 damage hit. And while this tank is pretty much a tier 7 medium tank now at tier 6 premium, it definitely doesn't have the hit points of a tier 7 tank. And 720 hit points isn't really going to get you a very long way in this vehicle. Now Andras is going to take a lot of shots at this T-34, and that must be a stock T-34. Oh wow, you don't really see that turret all that long on that tier 5 Soviet medium tank. But oh gosh, Andras's accuracy not really, getting it done here. How unfortunate. 0.37 accuracy on this tank. It's not terrible, but it's not good. But I would find that immensely frustrating now. Will he be able to hit it? Finally he does. 194 damage into the side of the turret there. And he's now up to 2,000 damage. That would be a really good game in a tier 7 medium tank, and he's managed to achieve that in the first third of the game. But it looks like he's got his work cut out for him here, because 6 of his friends have died and only 3 of the enemy team have died. And he has killed 2 of those 3 players. So he's certainly going to have to kill a few more to probably be able to get through this one. And it's also quite scary because a couple of his tier 6 tanks have fallen in the form of the KV2 and the Rudy. But then again, he has pretty much taken out those STR V74s on the enemy team. So it's kind of neck and neck, but at least we're going to see an exciting game on Sand River here. Quite often it can be a one-sided affair for the defending team, especially if they manage to push out the vision from the middle of the map where we see that STR V74. But this IKV raining down, that's the guy who managed to put a big old hit into Andras just a few minutes ago. We don't want to see that happening again. That T-34 pulling back, worried about Andras finishing him off. And now he's going to be firing through the buildings here, wanting to try and get towards the Su-85. The Su-85 trundles his way through the building. Andras hits him from 201 damage. Will he be able to finish him off? Ricochet there, 160 damage. That's the 85mm, I believe, or maybe not quite. Yeah, it must be the 85mm on that Su-85. 160 damage, not all that bad to be able to ricochet off, and that's just really what the frontal armor on this tank does. I'm pretty sure if he'd been driving the Rudy, he would have lost most of his hit points then. Wow, looks like Andras certainly likes this tank. He's got 3 marks of excellence on the barrel. Didn't notice that until now. So now, 5 tanks left on his team and 7 tanks left on the enemy team. He's making his way into position to take out a rather dangerous tier 6 Soviet heavy tank, the KV-85, which looks like he's using the 100mm, but luckily Andras's 85mm able to whip in another shell and be able to finish him off. So the IKV comes over the ridgeline. Will he be able to penetrate him? He fires a heat round and ricochets 300 damage. Now I believe those heat rounds on that tank have got either 100 or is it 130mm of penetration. And Andras just ricocheted off like it was nothing. Looks like off the front of the hull. I believe that was that ricochet right there. Maybe that hit the driver's hatch, which, remember, if you angle it, goes up to about 200mm of effective armor. Again, I think that the Rudy would have been dead now without the increased armor of the T-34-85M. Now he's just bouncing off the Matilda, bounces 2 off the Matilda, angling his armor perfectly. We can see that he is a master of this tank. Ricocheting 3 shells from the Matilda there, which allows him to take him out. and that is a rather deadly tier 4 British medium tank, and I believe that Matilda had the top gun. And if that Matilda had the top gun, he's packing about 120mm of penetration. Again, more than enough to go through the front of the Rudy, but not the T-34-85M. I'm really trying to compare the tanks within this replay here for you, and oh man, I did say, I'm not sure if you have watched my 9.17.1 balancing changes, I think I called the video, but I did highlight that there were a few premium tanks in there that Wargaming obviously want to make relevant again. But wow, they've really made them very, very, very relevant. I don't know what that IKV 103 was doing. Maybe he just panicked. Maybe he tried to dodge the shell. Either way, he dies and Andras does not, picking up his 6th kill of the game now. He's secured a top gun. There are still 4 tanks left. Here's that AKV 65-2. That's the guy who put that big old shell into him earlier on. What was that? He took 200 damage from this guy. Not again. The IKV fluffs the shot. The M4A3 Easy 8 is shooting him in the butt, but Andras manages to finish off the IKV 65-2. Now he's making his way around to go after the T-34. Will he be able to? Oh, surely he's going to be able to take out the T-34, but gosh, the Hummel is sitting pretty up on the ridgeline. Looks like the Hummel can't quite see him because he's not zeroing in the shot. Maybe the Hummel even has 6th sense because he starts to pull back when he's been spotted. Andras puts 1 shell into him for 141 damage, but he's going to have to hit him at least one more time to be able to finish him off there. Okay, so the T-34, too many 85s here, right? Just the standard T-34 trying to make his way around the back. Maybe he's trying to find the FV304, but the FV304 has actually made his way more towards the northwest, and that should be very useful for Andras here. Really, he's under a lot of pressure right now, and this M4A3E8 really only has to hit him about a couple more times to be able to finish him off. So Andras realizes that and he wants to get distance. Looks like his view range isn't that bad. And I bet you he's packing a camouflage crew on this vehicle, so he manages to evade the spotting from the Tier 6 American medium tank and takes a swing blind at the T-34. That was quite risky, but wow, look, we see some spotting damage in there. Looks like the FV304 is doing his work with 2 minutes left on this game. There's only one of them in the cap circle right now. Andras shoots another building down and spots the Easy 8, but the Easy 8 now manages to spot Andras because he lowered all of his camo rating. Andras is panicking right now. Well, maybe not so much as the Easy 8 is on the enemy team, who drives straight forwards, finally notices where he is, zeroes in his gun. Will he be able to penetrate? The T-34 ricochets, I believe, a 76mm there for 110 damage. The Easy 8 misses. Andras puts 1 in through the front of his tank, having run out of armor-piercing rounds, doing nearly 4,000 damage this game. He is now dipping into his APCR. And he finishes off the T-34. Great result there. 9 kills and 1 minute and 18 seconds left on the game. Now remember, this is Assault, and Andras is defending an Assault. The only way that he can lose right now is if both him and the FV304 die to the Hummel. But I guess he can smell a Pools medal. He'll definitely still get a Pools medal. I think, do 2 Tier 4 tanks count towards a Pools medal? Well, I guess we're going to find out, at least if he manages to get his hands on the Hummel. But the FV304 goes over the ridgeline, misses a shell. Now 50 seconds left on the game. Andras pushes forwards. The Hummel is distracted by the FV304. He auto-aims, comes over the ridge. Will he roll high? Yes, he doesn't need to roll low at least. 159 damage dealt there, picking up his 10th kill of the game. 4,000 damage in a Tier 6 tank. This would be a great game in a Tier 8 tank, let alone. What a fantastic carry here by Andras. So it certainly was a Pools medal. Andras also gets a Steel Wall medal, something that I don't think would have happened in the Rudy. Also a high caliber for the 4,000 damage dealt. 4 times what anyone else on his team was able to achieve. Maybe this is the perfect comparison now. No, I don't think it's down to that. I think it's down to the player, not the tool, right? And how many credits did Andras make this game? Well, with a premium count, he made 30,000 credits, but that's after resupplying that premium consumable he used and also having to dip into the APCR rounds that he otherwise wouldn't have needed to in this matchup. And I'm pretty sure he keeps those in his vehicle as a reserve for when he's having to deal with Tier 7 and Tier 8 tanks, because your Tier 6 mediums and even your Tier 7 mediums don't really have very good penetration on their standard rounds unless you're driving, I guess, the recently buffed Panther. So Andras, thank you so much for uploading this onto What Replays and showcasing all of the strengths of the T-34-85M now and how it has been significantly buffed. It's certainly finally relevant again, and you know what, I think it's probably a little bit bit overtuned. I mean, surely the armor was enough to make up for the tiny little bit of less view range and the little bit less mobility compared to the Rudy. Why did it need to have 15% more DPM? I think this was a massive mistake by Wargaming, and there was no need to give this vehicle such a high alpha damage without reducing its rate of fire, and considering they buffed the weapon handling of the vehicle, while its mobility is still competitive, and that hull armor is absolutely fantastic at the front. This certainly is, in my opinion, the better tier 6 premium medium tank, at least for now. One thing that the T-34-85M doesn't get, and that is Shardik the dog inside your tank, which is such a novel feature of the Rudy. And am I right in thinking that the Rudy's crew are one of those premium crews that come with Brothers in Arms for free in a zero skill crew? And that's certainly going to be worth a lot. So Wargaming are currently asking for 20 euros for this tank. Is it worth it? Well, do you know what? If I've already got the Rudy, I probably wouldn't bother with this vehicle. I don't think it's that different, and I don't think it's that much better to pay another 20 euros. And I would probably invest that money into picking up a high tier Soviet premium medium tank, such as the T-54 first prototype or the T-44-100, because you're going to get way more credits, you're going to get way more crew training. Well, actually thinking about it, you're probably not going to get more crew training because low tier premium tanks compensate for that. But there's no doubt that credits are certainly really needed in World of Tanks right now with all of these non-premium vehicles that are coming out. And also, especially if you're a filthy stat padder, this is probably going to be able to reap you thousands and thousands of padded WN8, at least for now, until they increase the expected values of the tank, which I think they certainly will have to. Either way, I hope this video was useful to you, or maybe you just enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel out. And also just a quick heads up that this week is going to be a big week for my Twitch schedule. Today I'll be playing World of Tanks the last day of February. On Wednesday I'm going to be playing Horizon Zero Dawn on the PlayStation 4. Then back to World of Tanks on Thursday, but importantly, and something that I'm really looking forward, on Friday, deliveries allowing, I'm going to be unboxing a Switch on my stream and playing the brand new Zelda Breath of the Wild game, which looks like the reviews are very favorable for it at the moment. And so hopefully I'll see you all of this week for the same amount of World of Tanks, but just added variety. I'm really looking forward to it. And let me know in the comments if, like me, you think that Wargaming have overbuffed the T-34-85M, and if it's a bit cheeky that they suddenly make it collector's gem of the week after they've done so. But either way, as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.